Thucydides wrote that states go to war due to fear, honor, and interest. But does this theory, written 2,400-ish years ago, apply today? Hello, my name is John LeMay, and welcome to my basement war room. This is the second video on Thucydides in my series, The Great Military Philosophers on Afghanistan. Today, I'm going to be discussing, first, the prelude to war, that is the prelude to the Peloponnesian War. Second, fear, honor, and interest, Thucydides' theory. And then finally, I'll apply it to our current war in Afghanistan, and then conclude with some references. So let's jump right into it. The prelude to war. Let me orient you to my map first. Over in the west, we have Italy and the Ionian Sea. Here in the north would be what is modern-day Albania. Over to the east, the Aegean Sea, and barely in the southern half and central of the map, Greece. Now on this map, green is neutral, red are Spartan allies or members of the Peloponnesian League, and blue are parts of the Athenian Empire. So, to walk you through the start of the Peloponnesian War, the prelude to war, much before the war, Corinth established a few colonies, and these colonies included Corcyra, Epidamus, and Potidaea. So all three are Corinthian colonies. As time went on, Corcyra amassed considerable power and really distanced itself from Corinth and was very disrespectful to their founders. Later on, in the lead up to the Peloponnesian War, Epidamus had a civil war. It was really the nobles versus the people, or the democrats. So Epidamus breaks out into a civil war. And first they appeal to Corcyra and say, please aid us. Corcyra declines. Then they appeal to Corinth. And so Corinth comes in and says, yes, we'll help you out. And so Corinth intervenes in the Epidamus' civil war. When that happens, Corcyra then says, okay, we'll also intervene in this civil war, but on the other side. So Corcyra and Corinth are both intervening in opposite sides of Epidamus' civil war. This leads to the Battle of Leucuma, where the Corinthian fleet is defeated by the Corcyrian fleet at the Battle of Leucuma. And so then after that, the Corinthians really call in all their colonies, all their allies, and build up a very considerable force. Corcyra sees this force getting ready to come at them and goes, okay, we need help. And so they go and ask the Athenians for help. The Athenians say, yes, we'll help, and they join with Corcyra. Then Corinth launches its fleet, and they fight the Battle of Sabatoa. And in this battle, both sides claim victory. But after the battle, the Corinth's fleet returns to Corinth. And so shortly after that, Epidamus falls to Corcyra. So the Corcyrian-backed side of the Epidamus civil war wins, and Corcyra, and by extension Athens, now controls Epidamus. So, Corinth isn't going to take this lightly, and it helps its allies over in Potidaea rebel from Athens. And I shouldn't really say allies, but its old colony, the Potidaeans, rebel from the Athenian Empire. Corinth sends about 2,000 volunteers to aid the Potidaeans, and then Athens dispatches a sizable force and besieges the Potidaeans. At this point, then Corinth, on behalf of the Potidaeans, with the Potidaeans, goes to Sparta and asks Sparta to come in and join the war on the side of the Potidaeans and to bring in the Peloponnesian League. And that's of course what happens. At that point, then Sparta joins the war, and the war is then between Sparta and Athens, the Peloponnesian League and the Athenian Empire, and we begin the Peloponnesian War. So, despite all that, Thucydides writes, hey, all that is just pretext. The real reason that Sparta went to war with Athens is for growing fear of their empire. And that leads us into fear, honor, and interest. So let's take a look at Thucydides' theory. Now, a little preface to theory here. If we were still studying Master Sun, we just opened a book and Master Sun would say, the reason states go to war is fear, honor, and interest. Full stop. That's not how Thucydides operates. Most of his work is a detailed military history. And so there's a lot of descriptions of the battles, how many triremes are involved, who's commanding them, when the battle happens, what the results were, tactics used. Most of his work is military history. But in his speeches between and amongst the key protagonists, he embeds theory. So at one point, he explicitly has someone say, 3 of the strongest motives are fear, honor, and interest. This chart I have here takes that fear, honor, interest and breaks down all the speeches according to it that lead up to the actual declaration of war from the Peloponnesian League, to them actually going to war. So I'll start over here on my right, your left, with Coursera to the Athenians. So Coursera is asking Athens to intervene on her behalf. And she says, fear. If you don't, then the second and third largest naval forces will be combined and be a threat to you. Honor. We are the victim. Come assist us. Interest. If you do intervene with us in this war, we will be your ally, and we, the second largest naval force, and you, the greatest naval force, will then be combined. We will immeasurably increase your power. And then geography. You, Athenians, are a eastern-facing empire. We are all the way on the west side of Greece, and so it's a huge geographic advantage to you to gain our navy for you over here to the west. Okay, then Corinth to Athens saying why you should not intervene is because fear. If you intervene, you'll become our enemy. Honor. Corsia is our colony. We should be able to deal with them as we choose, and they've dishonored us. We have a current treaty with you, Athenians. And we, Corinth, have supported you in the past, so it'd be dishonorable after our historic support for you to act against us. However, the Athenians do intervene. They do choose to come in, and really because these interests that Corsairians point out outweigh everything else. Okay, these next series are Corinth to Sparta, and then internally Sparta on the decision for Sparta to go to war. So Corinth to Sparta, honor. If you permit evil, you're dishonorable. It's the same as committing it yourself. You gave your word to the allies that you would help them in their time of need. Now you have to honor your word. And then interest. If you fail to act, you will lose your allies. All your allies will need to make a different league, a different alliance system to protect them if you won't act. Athens to Sparta. War is full of chance and risk. So if you go to war with us, if you intervene, something really terrible could happen to you. Honor. Our Athenian record in the Persian War, when we saved the Greeks from the Persians, is tremendous, and you should honor that and not go to war with us now. And then empire, interest. Our empire is necessary to protect us and all Greeks from the Persians, so you should respect that. Okay, the Spartan king to Sparta. Spartan king points out that the Athenians have a powerful navy and a lot of money, and that we, Sparta, don't have that. And so to win this war, we'll have to beat them at sea, we'll have to beat this powerful navy, and we'll have to have better resources than them. And so this is fear, we don't have that stuff. Honor says, hey, the Athenians are not going to be cowed. Don't take this war lightly. They will fight. And then fear, or really interest, and this is a little bit tougher one to categorize, but interest, So we will have to build allies, we'll have to build resources, we'll have to build a navy. So let's take our time, don't declare war now. Let's take our time and build all this stuff up before getting involved in a war. Okay, this gentleman here is a highly elected Spartan official, so not a king, but a prominent Spartan who has a different opinion, wants to go to war. And so to go to war now, he says honor. Yes, the Athenians did a great job against the Persians, and that actually makes it all the worse that they're being dishonorable now. That double, the fact that they used to be good and now are bad is doubly dishonorable. The honor of Sparta demands that we go to war now. We cannot betray our allies. We must stick with our allies. And the gods favor us going to war. And these references to gods, when I read this, really resonates to me as a discussion about honor. Okay, interest. Other city-states, other people have money, they have resources, they have these different things. But we, Sparta, have good allies. We cannot afford to lose these allies. So it's in our interest to go to war now to help our allies. Okay, so those are the Spartan speeches, and Sparta declares war. But after Sparta declares war, then it summons the Peloponnesian League and puts the vote to them. So Sparta does not declare war for the entire league. They all have to make their vote. So the Corinthians then address all the Peloponnesian League, and they say, fear, Athens is a match for our entire league. The Athenian Empire is a match for all of our league. So we need to act together. Individually, they can easily crush any one of us. But we've got to stand together or perish alone. That's fear. Then interest, Corinth points out to the members of the Peloponnesian League that are in the interior, that aren't seafaring city-states, hey, when the Athenian Empire surrounds all of Greece, when they control all the west side of Greece in addition to all the east side of Greece, it will affect your economic interests. So you will be affected by this too. So then the Peloponnesian League votes for war, and they send some demands to Athens. And then a prominent Athenian statesman addresses the Athenians and says, hey, fear, if we give in to even the smallest demand from these guys, unending large demands will follow. So giving into the small demand equals giving into a big demand. Can't do it. And if we give in to these demands the Spartans are making now, they're not taking it to arbitration. They're not doing things equals do. They're setting us a demand. If we give into a demand, that's slavery. We become slaves. So that's fear. Honor, when the danger is greatest, the glory is greatest. Our fathers defeated Persia, now we must defeat the Spartans. So those are calls to honor. And the Athenians do, of course, then go to war. They do not do any of the demands Sparta puts forth. So when we look at this, there's no one else really to give us an alternate viewpoint than Thucydides. So of course his theory holds up pretty well in his historical work. Does it apply today? Let's take a look at fear, honor, and interest applied to our current war in Afghanistan. Okay, so here's the same matrix with some modern events across the top. And those modern events are Osama bin Laden's declaration of war against the United States in '98. President Bush's address to the nation on 9/11. President Bush's address to Congress on 20 September. And then President Bush's address to the United Nations in November, the 10th of November. So, fear, honor, and interest. Osama bin Laden. Fear. The United States is murdering Iraqis and humiliating Muslim neighbors. So he claims we murdered lots of Iraqis in the Desert Storm, and we're continuing in '98 to murder Iraqis and humiliate the Muslim neighbors. That's fear. Honor. The USA, the United States, supports Jews. The United States declared war on Allah, on God, and God, Allah, orders Muslims to participate in this war. So those are calls to honor, and very much the same way I read the Spartan or Greek invocation of their gods during their speeches as honor. I read Osama bin Laden's invocations to Muslims the same way, same category, honor. Okay, interest. The United States is occupying Saudi Arabia, and so it's in Muslim interests to get this foreign occupier out of our Muslim lands. The United States aggression versus Iraq, and again, that just shows that it's in their interest to take the war to the United States. So that's Osama bin Laden's declaration of war broken down by fear, honor, interest. President Bush's address to the nation. So I didn't, as I read it, see any fear. I think he was very much trying to work against fear at that point, trying to reassure America and help people not be terrorized by terrorists. But honor. The United States was targeted because we are a beacon of freedom. We will defend freedom. Interest. No distinction between terrorists and those who harbor them. Now this is a little bit different. Most of the Greek references in Thucydides' fear, honor, interest were internally focused. So like when the Corinthians addressed the Spartans, they were making arguments about the Spartans' fear, honor, and interest. This is President Bush saying to the world, hey, other nations, it's in your interests not to harbor terrorists because we make no distinction between them. Okay, President Bush to Congress on the 20th of September. Al-Qaeda's goal, this is fear, Al-Qaeda's goal is to remake the whole world in their image. Al-Qaeda will kill Christian civilians, women, and children. Now, just the fact that any of this is categorized or I use fear, honor, and interest to describe it, so fear, doesn't mean it's not true. I mean, lots of women, children, and civilians died on September 11th. So it's absolutely true. But it's still, and sometimes, could be interest too, right? Like, hey, we don't want our women and children to be killed, therefore it's in our interest to do something. So a lot of things could be categorized different ways, but I do think this primarily falls in the fear category. Okay. To the Taliban, externally focused. Give up Al-Qaeda, give up Osama bin Laden, or share their fate. That's fear. Honor. By aiding Al-Qaeda, by aiding Osama bin Laden, the Taliban are murderers. Al-Qaeda are the heirs to Nazism, to fascism, so they're dishonorable. And then human freedom depends on the United States of America. Okay, interest. There's thousands of terrorists in over 60 countries around the world. 9/11 was an act of war against us, so it's in our interest to do something about it. All nations are with us or against us. That's externally focused. It's in other nations' interest to be with us. Okay, and then President Bush to the United Nations. This is fear, externally focused. Hey, the terrorists are planning more attacks, and these other attacks might be in your countries. The terrorists are searching for weapons of mass destruction, and they have no inhibitions against using them. When they find WMD, they will use it against you, against us. So that's fear. Okay, honor. Civilization is threatened, and history will record how all of us nations act in this moment. There's honor in history's call. Then interest. We, the United States, will defend ourselves. Regimes that sponsor terrorists will pay. And the only route to peace is to take action. We have to deal with the terrorists to achieve a peaceful future. So, I think, as I break it down, that Thucydides' theory that fear, honor, and interest describe why nations go to war does help me understand the Afghanistan war and why it happened. There's one glaring omission to my chart here, which is the Taliban. Now, all these are documents. It was easy for me to get President Bush's speeches, to find Osama bin Laden's written declaration of war. What I struggled to find and didn't find was the Taliban. Why the Taliban did not hand over Osama bin Laden and instead chose war with the United States. And so they really should be added to this matrix. There are news articles that I found that just give a quick quote from the Taliban's ambassador to Pakistan. The way I categorize it, based on what I know and what I've read, is the Taliban did it for honor for two reasons. One, the Taliban is a Pashtun movement, Kota Pashtunwali. As hosts, they felt it was dishonorable for them to give up their guests, the Al-Qaeda. And then two, honor from a shared solidarity with other Muslims. The United States is not a Muslim country. Al-Qaeda is a Muslim movement. They're a Muslim government, a Muslim theocracy, and they just, from that common shared heritage, felt they couldn't give them up. So I really believe that the reason the Taliban didn't give up Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda after President Bush's very clear demands on the 20th of September was honor, according to Thucydides' theory. So I do believe Thucydides' framework of fear, honor, interest helps explain the Afghanistan war and is applicable today. Okay, couple references. The first is, of course, Thucydides' work, The Peloponnesian War. I'm looking at three different translations. This one, The War of the Peloponnesians and the Athenians, is very useful. The reason it's titled a little differently is because Thucydides' work is untitled, and this is a little bit less pejorative. It has Athenians and Peloponnesians in it. Then the other one is the Landmark Thucydides. And then finally, the book you saw at the beginning is an early Crawley translation of the Peloponnesian War. And so I'm looking at all three of those. I also find Professor Harl's course from the Great Courses extremely useful to sort of break down and understand the military actions of the Peloponnesian War. Okay, my mission here at the Basement War Room is to preserve the lessons of the Afghanistan and Iraq War. If you'd like to join me in that mission, then please join the Facebook group Lessons of the Afghanistan and Iraq Wars. And if you'd like to go a little deeper behind the scenes of the Basement War Room here, sign up for my newsletter at thebasementwarroom.com. Thank you so much for joining me today.